Hello? Hello? Okay, let's see. Share screen. I'll play around and I'll figure out how I can get them to screen share.
Okay. So the agenda has gone out in your package. I need a mover and a seconder to accept the agenda as printed.
I'll move.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. And seconded by?
I'll second.
Thanks, Heather. Okay, so now as always, we have to do our roll call. Oh, I've kind of got ahead of myself. The to approve the agenda. Heather?
Yes.
Yeah. Wayne? You approve that, Wayne? Yeah, you're
Yes.
Wayne. Nora Ann?
Yes, I approve.
Sean?
Yes.
And myself, so it's been carried. Just our roll call for this, it's Heather,
Here.
Nora Ann, Sean, Chris, and then we have Wayne as a guest, I guess, Wayne? His staff? And Virginia and Sam, you're taking the minutes.
I think I would be the guest and Wayne is on the committee, right? Brent's
Well,
the
I'm not a guest.
No, I'm sorry, I got this mixed up. I'm watching the lines here. Wayne, you're the guest. And Wayne, no.
You just tell me what role you want me to play, and I'll try to do it. I've got
Yeah, well, you're good at role playing, so you're good. Okay. Let's go now to the minutes that were in your package. I need a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes. So someone to move it.
move it.
Okay, Wayne, seconded by?
I'll second.
Thanks, Heather. Are there any discussion about the minutes that went out in your package? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Heather?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yep.
Nora Ann?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
And Chris is carried. If you have any declaration of pecuniary interest, now's a good time to declare it. Or you can declare it as we come along to some item if you feel that you need to do that. Okay. This is arising from the minutes. The first thing is the Community Recognition Award presentation. And Virginia, I know you've been working on this. Maybe you can fill us in on where we stand.
Yeah, so I have had a chance to talk with Lisa Bell in the mayor's office and Tessa in our corporate affairs with regards to how we could probably do this year, just with all of the social distancing requirements. And they haven't been really having delegations at council. They've been trying to minimize any of the public coming in as much as possible, just to kind of keep the numbers low. So we are thinking that we can do what they've done with a number of other instances, is do a virtual presentation. So the mayor would be able to record a message to Marco. And then Chris, I had talked to Chris about, as the chair, if he's comfortable going and arranging a time to meet with Marco to present him the award. And that would also be videotaped. Jordan in our corporate affairs would be able to assist with that. And then we would be able to, thank him, give him his award. And that video would then be shared at council in November, when we usually do the presentation, along with being able to post it on our social media site, and then do a thank you out that way. So that's kind of where we're at. And then hopefully by next fall at this time, we'll be out of our restrictions and we can invite Marco back to take his photo with the mayor, and then hopefully have a reception that year and allow him to invite the guests that he normally would have invited to the reception, along with the other recipients that would be receiving it in 2021.
But we'll keep the committee involved with whatever we can do, because it's whatever we can do at that time. If it's outdoors under the tent or on the steps of City Hall, wherever we can present this, we'll keep you all informed, and if you're free and we can do it, we'll just wait and see what it works out like closer to November. Is that okay? Any questions?
Could I comment there? Or?
Yes, Noran.
Okay, the Art Society are very concerned because they won it last year, and I think we sent a note to Virginia, or to Chris too, about they're wondering when and where and how, and so I just tell them to wait, it's coming, or what should I tell them? Like, or do they still, is it important that they're there?
They're interested
Pardon?
in coming?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
As
they were the
past
last year's
recipients.
winners, eh?
As past recipients, right?
Yes, so this is what
Okay. So just what Virginia said, we can't have a gathering.
Right.
So
right. Yes,
it'll
they're
be,
all-
it
they're all
may
there
not
at
happen
that,
this
yeah.
year as a gathering.
Mhm.
Word will be presented, but not a gathering.
Okay, so that's what I should tell them, eh?
I would tell them that.
They don't have to, because the
It
video
would-
would just be Marcos and
It'd just be, there won't be a gathering this year.
the camera. Yeah. Okay, so I said no. Okay.
But
so
have
I
they,
like that,
have
yeah.
they contacted Virginia?
Yes, and we sent one. I think I sent one to you too. I don't know if Rod.
I didn't get anything, Nora,
Nothing from-
but if it's
Yeah.
gone to Virginia, it might be better if Virginia answers them.
Yeah, so Noran, yeah, I did get your email, and I think,
Yes, yeah.
back, I guess that was at least a few weeks ago now, I said I had no idea what it's going to look like, just with all of the
Mhm.
restrictions that are in place. And,
Right.
and that is, I think, even more so now that they've done the rollback with some of those other restrictions, we're just not going to be able to have a reception this
Okay.
year safely. So that's why we're looking at the virtual presentation to make sure that we can do it safely at this time.
Yes, because when you answered back, you just said I'll be checking with the council, city council, and finding out where they're at. And I see what you're saying now. So, okay, so I'll just tell them there'll be no reception, and maybe just because they were wondering. We've got 50 members, but there wasn't 50.
Won't
that
be
was
50 showing up, no.
No.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. The next item that came up from our minutes is Culture Days. And Virginia did include in your package the poster. Are there any comments or questions?
I just wanted to comment that it looks fantastic, and I think everyone involved deserves a huge recognition for the work that they've been doing under extremely bizarre circumstances.
Yes, it looks like a very interesting program, doesn't it, Sean?
Chris, sorry, can I just add in? This actually brings us kind of back to Sean's resolution of thanking all of the different organizations within the community for what they've been doing during COVID. I did have a chance to talk to Sean quickly about it. And in a similar vein, it may be a really nice opportunity to put out a generic statement from the Cultural Advisory Board and something, again, through social media and the website. Again, thanking those organizations, as we suggested, that have really went above and beyond getting creative to provide programming for the community during COVID, and just do it as a one big nice message to all. That way we make sure we don't miss anybody. So if the committee is comfortable with that, because we did have that resolution, which we do need to address from the previous meeting, we can look at crafting something up to share with the committee before we post it out to the community.
Sure. Okay, Virginia. Thank you. Well, the thing is too, is you want to make it general enough, but you want to make sure you have everyone listed, but maybe not everyone. Got to put some statement in to include everyone. So, anyways, okay, so you'll send that out, Virginia, for us, and we'll help you write it if you want some help.
That would be wonderful. Whose
Sure.
list is that going on?
Yeah.
I will take help right now.
I got us
Okay.
into this, so I'll volunteer.
Awesome. Sam is
Go on,
typing
Sean.
that down as we speak.
Yeah, Sean's volunteering. Okay. And Heather will check the spelling, so she'll help. And Wayne's retired, so he's got lots of time. In your package was the Cultural Advisory Board. It was a pretty neat little flow chart, and maybe that's where we could sort of start from. if everyone remembers that. Virginia, do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Into the other
So
stuff.
what I did was I just tried to create a little bit of a flow chart or summary document to kind of capture the different initiatives that the Cultural Advisory Board has as part of their portfolio. So right now, you'll see at the top, it's got the name, and I sent out a really lengthy email to kind of explain everything when we did this. We talked about the composition, and then there's a couple of the changes that we're looking at recommending. The policy now, so originally we had the Cultural Policy, Community Recognition Award, Cultural Financial Assistance, and Gift to Dignitaries. Now that we have the cultural plan, that's been added in. And from there, I envision that there's going to be a number of subcommittees that'll be created in order to be able to help address the various action items that are contained within the cultural plan, which is fairly lengthy, and there's a lot of items where we would need smaller working groups to help staff to facilitate those projects forward. Those would then come back to the Cultural Advisory Board at that point in time. And then also in behind the scenes, there will be a number of working groups that will be kind of done and more on a staff level, but there might be times when the staff are inviting members of the committee to come in and to participate in some of those working groups, in addition to people that are in the community. So some of the examples would be the traffic wrap program, Pall Mall alleyway, maybe some events where we're pulling members in to help, but those don't necessarily have to go back to resolution or approval by the committee. Two of the changes up at the top that you can see is, as we're merging ACAT, and which is the Arts and Culture Action Team, who is heavily involved with a number of activities through the Futures SSM project, and the Cultural Advisory Board, we're looking at changing the name to the Cultural Vitality Committee. And kind of the reasoning behind that is that we are hoping to tie that back to the Cultural Vitality pillar, which was identified in the Common Cause and Direction for Sault Ste. Marie document that was done through the Community Advisory Committee. I might have just got the name on. Anyways, we're looking at tying it all back to that and merging those two committees and making that shift from a board to a committee, just because we're going to be having a lot of action items. So we need a lot of involvement from the committee members, similar to Municipal Heritage Committee or PRAC, where there's a lot of working groups and there's research being done and different activities that are undertaken by the committee members to help so that we can achieve the goals of the cultural plan. So that's the name change. And then the other piece was looking at adding a member of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. So that's currently just being confirmed through the mayor, and looking at having 3 staff added into that. And all of those would be voting members in addition to the minimum of 5 members of the community, which are currently part of the terms of reference.
Okay,
And with that,
so that explains the flow chart. Any questions about the flow chart? You did a good job, Virginia. There's no questions. So you started to go on to the terms of reference and the changes. One thing you explained to me is that taking the Cultural Advisory Board to the Cultural Vitality Committee fits into more how the city is structured now, with having a committee, the Cultural Vitality Committee. So moving over to that from the Cultural Advisory Board, we need to change our terms of reference, or council needs to change it. We just need to make some suggestions to them. And that was put in your package. In your package, it was highlighted the changes that Virginia kind of went through. So she, if I'm not mistaken, Virginia, you took the terms of reference from the Cultural Advisory Board and sort of updated them to meet the Cultural Vitality Committee needs and the changes that we needed to make, and change the name. Am I correct?
yeah, so I highlighted a number of the additions. So you'll see a lot of the structure is exactly the same. One of the things that I do have to work through with the clerk's department is I also included the old bylaw. So the process would be to repeal the bylaw, because committees that generally have bylaws are ones that are legislative in nature, like the Municipal Heritage Committee, which actually has legislation attached to it. They're working through a process of updating all of the boards and committees' terms of reference for consistency. But with the postings coming up this November, we kind of need to get this one in the queue because we're looking at changing the composition. So there may be some additional wording that falls around the history of when the committee was formed, why it was passed. It would kind of lead into the terms of reference. But the basics are, the big change would be the addition in the composition. And then there's a little bit more information under meetings as far as when the meetings would happen, calling additional meetings, and then also 7.3 and 7.4. On the second page of the draft that I provided you, that's new wording, and that's consistent with the Municipal Heritage Committee. Because down the road in the future, there may be times when there may be travel for committee members. We don't know, but we need to make sure that that's captured within that terms of reference. The other change that I'm hoping for is just because of the volume, it would be nice to be able to set a regular meeting date. So for example, the Municipal Heritage Committee meets the first Wednesday of every month at noon, and then we know we have some ad hoc meetings at different times if an issue comes up we have to address. It can be time consuming to have to do doodle polls every time we need to have a meeting, try to get consensus, try to find a time. So if committee members and people applying to committees know there's a set date and time on a regular basis, it just helps with administratively for me to be able to, and the expectations. So people kind of can plan their time in advance, that they know this is a date. So that's something that I was hoping to discuss to see, you know, what the thoughts were on a regular meeting day and time. So example, Municipal Heritage Committee meets at noon, but PrAC always meets at 4:30. So it's kind of, we've traditionally had evening meetings, but we've had a lot more noon ones because we've been able to fit them in with Zoom. I think it's made it a little bit easier. So that was kind of a discussion point to see what the committee would like to see as kind of that regular meeting time and what we could put in that terms of reference.
Okay, well, let's have that discussion about a meeting time. What's the people thinking? I know we had the meeting time set for 4:30, 5 o'clock, because at that time, a lot of the committee members were all working. Sometimes if you have it at noon hour, some people may not be able to make it.
Yep.
Which draws it off. But I think, Virginia, what I agree with what you're saying is if you have a specific time when someone says, oh, I like to be on that committee, and you can say to them, well, the meetings are at that time. If they can't make that commitment, then they're going to know right there that that's maybe not the best committee for them to volunteer on right now. So it is
correct.
You know, every time. So, you know, any other discussion or ideas?
I would agree with well, I don't know if you're proposing it as such, but certainly historically we've this committee has met in the evenings, so I think that that's a generally a good time for it indicates it's a good time for ACAT. We've kind of alternated between evening and afternoon, just because of the schedules of the people that were on it at that time. But I think on the whole, you know, that sort of suggests that an evening time would be better. It might be worth discussing because I noticed that as proposed, this would include 3 staff. So that would be, you know, kind of extending your work hours. But I'm not sure if I hear Virginia giggling because that's like so that's like normal for city staff.
Hey,
Yeah,
Sean,
and
if I could just add, Virginia has 5 committees, so that's why she's giggling right now. So.
Yeah, I don't perceive that as an issue for us. I mean,
Okay.
we schedule around that. Ultimately, we need to look at the various committees. PrAC currently is the first Tuesday of the month at 4:30, so that would be a conflicting time for me. So as long as it's not the first Tuesday of the month, it's decided upon, then it's pretty much any other day of the month is open. And 4:30 is absolutely fine. That's not an issue at all.
I would suggest Monday or Wednesday because I find that Thursday and Friday are very common days for openings.
If I
And
could
Sean,
suggest
what
Wednesday-
happens on Mondays? Mondays are usually holidays, so
Right.
it's better
Yeah.
to go with your Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, and also for us as staff, every other Monday is council.
Right.
So there could definitely be conflicts for us from a staff perspective. So Wednesdays would definitely be a better day. So are you thinking the first Wednesday of the month or second or?
Excuse me for a second, the
Wait a minute.
Art Society is every second Wednesday of every month. That's when our meetings are there. And it's at 7 o'clock, 7 to 9 at the Civic Center, every second Wednesday.
So would we maybe want to think about every third Wednesday?
We can certainly give it a try. You're
Yeah,
never
and
gonna say that everybody's going to be there. We're going to have to shuffle around a little bit.
At
and
4:30.
are we targeting 4:30 or 5?
Yeah,
that day?
because, well, we have to keep 4:30, I think. I'm thinking of the library board. And so,
Mhm.
depending on it, we don't want to restrict who might apply for this board in the future
Yeah.
because of their work commitments. So 4:30 tends to work for the library.
Most people are able to go at 4:30. They could, if they have to work till 5, sometimes they'll work during their lunch break and move it up. If they're working, 4:30 seems to be a pretty good time. And then
Okay, so are we,
done 2 hours. So 4:30,
sorry, Chris.
4:30, people are sort of looking at every third Wednesday.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Sorry, Chris, you were cutting out for a second. Okay.
Okay, so third Wednesday, 4:30 every third Wednesday.
Chris,
Yes,
can I just ask a quick question?
sure.
Just on that, does that provide flexibility if that's kind of your standing date to add the odd lunch hour meeting in as well, just to have flexibility for the group?
Yeah, I think we should. You know what we're saying there, Virginia and Sam?
Yes, yeah, I think there is flexibility because I think we talk about ad hoc committees and subcommittee meetings. Person, committee filter, or in all meetings. Yeah, I can add in notes.
You
I can
do,
add in a note
Chair
under
can call special
7.1
meetings.
about calling special meetings if required too.
Yeah. Okay, so Heather, that's okay with you? I see you shaking your head.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I mean, we have to also like plan for meetings right now to be virtual. It doesn't mean something won't be changing in the future. We can meet in person.
Right.
I'm assuming that any of this may be a little bit more flexible depending on maybe who's on the committee or what the needs are. So as long as we have some flexibility, because like I said, it's a different group of people with different schedules. So it may have to change in the future, but I'm okay with this right now.
I know we picked 4:30 for cultural advisory because sometimes they had choir practice at 7 and they could, because usually they were involved in the arts somehow or they were in a play. So if you started at 4:30, they could be out the door by 6:30. That was sort of their idea. So, okay,
Chris,
yes.
do you anticipate the need to have 12 meetings? Like, do you want to leave this off for, like, I'm not sure, like
I
say
think-
December, July and August, as needed kind of thing, or do you want a monthly meeting?
I think when you see, there's more coming down the tubes in some of the other reports, I think you're going to be pretty busy. It's going to have subcommittees and stuff.
I can see that. I'm just, it becomes an issue in the summer with people attending and,
Well, and getting a quorum.
yeah, exactly. So
Uh,
I don't know.
Well, let's see what
Um,
Virginia says. She knows with PrAC how it works.
And generally, so generally speaking, PrAC doesn't meet through July and August, again, for the same reasons that Wayne just pointed out. It does become a challenge with quorum and vacation. So, you know, I would imagine it's probably looking like 10 meetings a year, depending again, you know, that third week of December where maybe it's falling too close to the holidays. We may choose at the November meeting to say, instead of meeting the third Wednesday, we're going to bump it to the second Wednesday because it's just too close to Christmas. So there's flexibility with being able to do that and making those decisions. It's just going to allow us to people to know in advance, have a better understanding of what that commitment's going to look like moving forward.
Well, as Brent pointed out too, we can change it to being a noon hour meeting. So we've got the
Correct.
flexibility. Right, Virginia, did you get that?
Yes, yeah. If we need to make those changes, and then we can, you know,
So-
adjust some meetings as necessary.
So do you want to add in what Wayne suggested, that July and August, the meetings will be called at the chair and vice chair, or we'll call if needed, add that in so that we're down to 10 meetings a
I
year?
think that the language in the document gives us enough flexibility. You know, it says that
I think so too.
the chairperson or vice chairperson can cancel a meeting due to lack of business. Maybe we want to add due to lack of business or quorum or expectations of quorum or something like that. But
Okay.
We could also, I was just going to suggest too, I can get some language from the clerk's department. We can also add in that the committee generally meets September through June each year.
Okay.
And that there may be special meetings called, but it's generally a September to June monthly meeting.
Sure. So you get the wording so that that covers off Wayne's concern, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Virginia, I just had a question about, and I don't know if other will have, about the composition of the board. We say a minimum of 5 members from the community with knowledge and interest and involvement. So we can have quite a good number of people that may be interested out of the community. There's no maximum number, right?
No, there hasn't been a maximum number, and that language is consistent with the previous, the previous bylaw. So under composition, it was a minimum of 5 members. But as you know, we have 7 plus a counselor currently. We've had flexibility in the past, and Sean will know, I'll use Municipal Heritage Committee as an example. Generally, we have 10 on the committee, and that's what we appoint each year. But when we're moving into hosting the Heritage Conference, we added a couple more members because of the workload that we were going to have hosting that conference. So we expanded the composition at that point in time. And we've been carrying 7 plus the counselor, so 8 for some time now. But I just kept that language consistent.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? Any questions?
I'd like to see the minimum change to 6 because I'm looking at the overall numbers and we have an even number. Of course, the chair doesn't vote or cannot vote, may not vote. But I wouldn't mind increasing that number, irregardless.
Minimum of 6?
If there's interest in that.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm fine with that. I think we might have a lot of interest anyway, so I think it should be a minimum of 6, and that will allow for a broader scope too.
That's right.
I agree. I think it sends the message too that this committee is doing a lot of work and needs a lot of participation.
And we're asking for members at the community at large to involve them. Can you make that change, Virginia?
Yes, yep, I've got that notice. So I think that's, and like I said, we've been carrying 7. So that's fine. I've got it noted on here.
Right. And hopefully this won't add to giving us a problem for quorum. Like we were pretty close today without having a quorum. hopefully that doesn't happen. Or we can keep this going. Okay, so there's the terms of reference. Is there anybody else had any other questions about the terms of reference? No?
Just clarification. Are staff currently voting members?
No, but they are on this one.
But they will be going forward.
That's right.
Okay, so that should alleviate your concerns about quorum.
That's right. That's what I was hoping. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. All right. Well, let's switch over to the next one, which is the bylaws. Virginia, did you want to take us through that?
The bylaw was just there for reference, so you could see the consistency between the old version, shift from bylaw to a new terms of reference. And for the committees, just so they understand, the bylaw will be repealed, but the terms of reference will be approved by council. So the draft that we have here, so the basics of the composition and the name changes would be included in this terms of reference. And again, there may be some other pieces that the clerk's department recommends for maybe some operational items that they might be suggesting, but those are the big pieces, is the composition, the meeting dates, and the name change.
All right, so now let's switch over to the cultural policy that was in your package.
So again,
It was changed the name there, really.
Yeah. So if you notice, the way that the report would be structured to go to council is that we're asking to approve the terms of reference, and the policy will be updated to reflect the name change and composition. The committee will then review the entire policy and make the full set of updates over the course of 2021. So we want the policy, those two changes, to be in line with the terms of reference, and then the rest we have to work on getting it updated. So there's sections in there where it talks about us doing a cultural plan. We now have that, and there may be language out of the cultural plan we want to pull over and make sure that there's consistency between documents, and really take a look at the policy and bring a new updated version for approval at the end of 2021.
Okay. Everybody all right with that?
So, Chris, if I could
Yes.
get a resolution,
It wasn't on your list here, girl. So what's the resolution you want?
changes to, I guess, really it's that resolve that the Cultural Advisory Board approve the changes to the committee name, and, the committee name and composition, and then subsequently those changes in the policy. So and then the policy updated to reflect those changes.
All right.
In the terms of reference.
Okay. Has everybody got the idea where the motion is? To reflect the changes that we've talked about right now?
Yeah.
I've put some text of that in the chat for others to see.
Look at you. Good job, Sean.
But I can't see it, Sean.
Oh, if you go to the bottom of your screen and click the
little
button that
icon.
says
Okay.
chat, and then it will
There we
pop up in the
Okay, so resolve that the
right-hand side.
Cultural Advisory Board approve the changes to the committee name, composition, and update the cultural policy to reflect those changes. So we need a mover and a seconder. Sean, you want to move it?
I'd be happy to.
And Nora Ann, would you like to second that?
Yeah, that'll be okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Heather?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yep, yes.
Nora Ann?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
And Chris, yes, so it's been carried. Thank you. Okay, so moving right down our list here is the Cultural Financial Assistance Program Guidelines, Update, and Rubric. So if you had a chance to read that, the staff has put together a wonderful thing, and I think Todd was involved with this, Virginia?
Yes, Todd spent a lot of time researching other communities and municipalities to pull this together, and Travis, I know Travis is heavily involved along with ACAT, so they've really put together a very detailed package, for kind of that next phase and being able to, especially as the funding's increasing. So I'll turn it over to you.
So Virginia, can you explain to the committee the amount of money and how this is all going to work? Because it's just not the 53.9, it's growing up larger than that now with the granting. And do you know what I'm asking you to explain?
Yes, so as the committee is aware, last year we received an increase in the funding that was available for us to distribute through cultural financial assistance grants. We've put in for an additional funding amount for 2021 to get to the level that we was recommended. So we're trying to reach $300,000 in funding for culture and heritage. That includes funding for public art, an increase to the funding available for the Heritage Committee to support heritage properties and initiatives in the community, as well as funding for organizations. And as you can see, if you had a chance to read through it, it's looking at some of those avenues. When we've had applications in the past, we haven't been able to necessarily provide the funding because they didn't fit into our funding program at the time. So an example would be seed funding for groups that are trying to get off the ground that don't have, the financial statements and paperwork. So there's different levels that have been set so that we can have some seed funding, operating funding, project funding, and then event funding, and then they're broken into small and large. So it's going to give more opportunities out there. There's also, if you noted in there, funding for diversity. So as we get to that point where we have all of that money that we're able to distribute, we really need a solid program so we know which stream people are fitting into, and then having that rubric so that we can, score each of those applications that are coming in against the set criteria.
And I think too, Virginia, what you're saying, that the staff would vent these before everything would still come to the committee, but the staff could vent these to make sure they're in the right areas, the right funding stream, so that, everybody's treated fairly equally and fairly well. Right?
Yeah, correct. So we're, as all the applications and the volume increases, we'll have an opportunity to kind of go through them and say, okay, these ones best fit into seed. We'll also have, somebody that's able to work with those organizations. If they have questions, say, here's my project idea. And then we'll say, okay, you want to be looking at seed funding, or this is operating, whatever stream they best fit into. We also envision that we'll be able to do some workshops in the beginning, maybe probably by Zoom at that point, so that we actually have the opportunity to talk to people and teach them about the new process, the different funding streams, how to fill out the application, what we're looking for in those applications, so that they really have a solid understanding of how to complete that application and what it looks like. The other piece, I don't know if you noticed in here that we're proposing, is looking at 2 intake times so that we have that opportunity for organizations. Right now, one of the catches that we see year in, year out is that we have our intake this fall, and the groups find out if they have funding end of January by the time we can get the meetings in. That is really difficult for those event organizers or people that are trying to do something January, February, March. They don't know if they've received any funding, so it's really hard for them to move forward. Having 2 intake periods really allows for somebody to do an earlier intake, say in the fall or the summer, and they have a year to complete their project, and then they would go to that next intake. So it's going to allow them to plan, if they're looking at paying for talent or bringing stuff in, it just gives them more time as opposed to being such a rush for some of those organizations. And this year, Akano would have been an example of an organization that, was trying to plan something, but because of the timelines, it was really, really tight timing for them from the time we made the decision, got it to council, and their event was taking place. So it'll help better serve those organizations.
So Virginia, this money would be set aside in the budget for it to be used during this time, right? Because usually it was, we would put the money in saying this is where we recommend it, then it goes to budget. We kind of did it backwards, really, right?
Yeah, the timing was always tight in the past, so
Yeah.
we wouldn't find out. And this is set aside. It'll allow us a little bit more time. So in the structure, we're saying if we know that we have $100,000, we set aside 75% for the first intake, and then 25% for the second intake. If we don't get all of those applications coming through in the second intake, you know, we need a mechanism to then say, okay, we set aside 25. We only got $10,000 worth of applications. That leaves 15,000 remaining. Can we then equitably distribute it to the other applicants that maybe didn't get as much funding as they had requested, and then be able to distribute that back out across to all of those organizations?
So you're just dreaming that people aren't going to ask for all the money, right?
We need to plan just in case they don't.
I don't think you're going to have to worry about people not asking for money, right, Wayne?
Not so far.
Wayne needs a new motorcycle, so start. Anyways,
I don't know if that's
Okay.
part of the culture advisory plan, but I recommend it. I just have a comment, Chris.
okay, and then we've got Heather. So go ahead, Wayne.
Oh, sorry.
You go first.
So, Virginia, you pointed out a couple of places in here where you would be adding, creating appendices to a lot of the organizations they're applying are small organizations. They're looking for $5,000, and this is a complex document. Is it possible to create fillable forms or simple flow charts that they don't get lost, and then we get the application, it's incomplete, or it doesn't apply at all? Like something needs to be done to help them as well. And I don't know how you'd approach that.
Well, Virginia, maybe you can answer that because you did talk about that. The fillable.
So, yeah, absolutely, we would have fillable forms. So on page 12, there's like a link to the application form. So they definitely would be fillable, and then the attachments can get loaded in. And then trying to look at how we have some of that consistency, because as you know, financial statements vary greatly from one organization to another, versus when some of the organizations actually do have audited because of their size, and others are much smaller and they're using QuickBooks or something very, very simple to track all of the financials ins and outs. So looking at having that consistency, and again, recognizing that, you know, if you're a large event and you're looking for a larger amount of money, the expectation for the type of reporting you're going to be giving us in the financials is very different than an organization that's looking for some seed funding. A lot of the stuff that Todd used, they did reach out to, you know, various bodies such as the Ontario Arts and Culture and different groups as to how do they evaluate applications, so that there is that kind of consistency that's in there. And you can see that the rubric really will help staff and the committee evaluate the applications as they're coming in, provide a score so that there's some scoring, and then, you know, obviously opportunity for notes and everything else that comes out of that. But yeah, we recognize that it is a very large document, and that we need to make sure that we're helping and educating and providing simpler forms, flow charts. This has very much been kind of an internal working document, so we have all those details, but, you know, we'll have to figure out how we better communicate that to the groups and organizations in the community.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Wayne? Okay. All right. And Heather.
So I like that there's going to be workshops to explain to everybody how this is going to work moving ahead. I like that there's 2 intakes. I totally agree that some people's projects just did not have enough time. Definitely need the fillable forms. The only other question, I liked everything that I'm hearing, but the only question I have is because there's going to be things like seed funding, operating projects, events, something for diversity. Is there going to be a cap for some people? Because some people will ask for the sun, the moon, and the stars, and other people have very reasonable budgets, right? And we know just, in past just reading these applications that, sometimes you do have to give people less. They don't necessarily have, they don't get their full amount, or, some people may ask for this on the moon, the stars. So if you're asking for seed funding, is there like a cap on that? Is it 5,000? Is it 10,000? Is it, or are we just going to go with basically with the rubric and then decide based on the budget how we allocate? That was my question.
Right.
It was complicated.
Okay. And you know what? Virginia has an answer for that. Because we
So,
go ahead, Virginia.
So an example would be like the small projects. So under 299,000, a maximum of 75% of the project budget would be allocated. So again, looking at how do we do that. So if somebody's looking for a large project grant, the total project is 20,000. The maximum that we would even consider is 50% of that. So each of those different categories, we have set kind of limits, because sometimes, we're being asked for 100% of the entire project. So we've tried to set limits in there to help guide them so that they understand what that expectation would be, that, if it's a $20,000 project, we would give up to 50% of that, 10,000. So where's the other 10,000 coming from, right? Whether they're applying for other grants, whether they fundraised or whatever. So we are looking at how those limits fit in.
Okay, Heather, does that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Yeah. So there will be some caps on things, and the groups will know which category, with the help of the staff, which category they should try to go for. And, they may go for 2 different categories depending on what their grant application's for.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Yes.
In terms of the those criteria, one thing I would suggest is that for the seed funding, within whatever cap is established for seed, I think that we should make it so that 100% of the funding can come from the city, just because the type of organization that might be attracted to that is going to be one that might not be, the people may not have a ton of experience in what those of us in the not-for-profit sector are quite used to, which is cobbling together sources from multiple locations. And so when it is for those tiny, startups or, those sorts of things, sometimes being able to go to one source and build that confidence and, get that amount, that can go a long way. And then you can move on to, say, the small project stream, and then know that you've done this before, I can do this application, I can get something from here and from there. And yeah, so that's my suggestion. But I also defer to the group.
And their experiences will grow, right? So they'll grow to learn stuff. Okay, so did you get that changed, Virginia?
Yeah, I got notes marked down about that as well. So thanks, Sean.
Okay. All right. Brent, you've been sitting awfully quiet there typing. Do you have any questions or comments about this?
Nope, I've read all the documents and reviewed them with Virginia. I'm just here in case you guys have any interesting questions today. So I'm just listening right now and multitasking at the same time. Yeah.
I just don't want to let you not have a chance to speak.
No, usually I do a lot of talking. I told Virginia before this meeting that I'm going to be very quiet unless called upon today, but I wanted to participate.
Okay, but we just want you to throw your 2 cents in.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Dorianne, do you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make?
No, I was just, when listening to all these areas, I just wonder where the art gallery fits into any of it, or does it? I think we've gone through that before, eh?
That's right. So maybe you can explain. Maybe you can explain about the art gallery, museum.
Sure. So Noreen, if you remember, each year there's different funding streams, and we have 3 organizations that do receive fairly large operating grants from the city. Those include the Sault Ste. Marie Museum, the Bush Plane, and the Art Gallery. So because they're already receiving a large sum of money for operations, they wouldn't fall into this current funding pot for other organizations that they can apply to. So they already, so they wouldn't be able to, say, go to this application process for additional funding on top of their operating grants that they receive.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, of those 3 groups, is there someone on council or someone somewhere that sort of guides these people or watches what they do? Like, how can I
Art
just
gallery and
something like a detective to find out what's happening actually? I don't
so
want to.
I can respond to that. So there is an application process that they do follow each year. So they do have to submit their requests through our finance department, as well as post-grant reports. So there is a reporting structure, and there are supporting documentation that they do submit each year through finance. So finance administers those operating grants, and then they go to council during the budget time. So that process, there is a similar process that's happening, but it resides with finance, whereas this other one is going to reside with the Cultural Advisory Board or Cultural Vitality Committee. So that would be the distinction between the two. So there is definitely a process that's followed and post-grant reporting that's submitted as well.
So it's not chiefly the board of, it's the art gallery I'm really, really concerned with. And as I don't know how much I can say here. We've lost Meg, from, the receptionist. She quit. And
so
that's
Norianne,
really,
maybe that would be a question that maybe after our meeting you could talk to Virginia about.
Yes. I don't want to, because there's a few things there I'm really, really concerned with. I'm
Okay.
also on that new building committee that they formed too.
Norianne,
So,
I'd be happy to give you a call after the meeting.
Yeah, because as I say, there's
okay.
a few things happening there that, and I didn't know how much strength we have or what, I don't know how to really word, like who is watching these
So
things
why
that are
do-
happening.
So Norianne, why don't you talk to Virginia after our meeting, and maybe she can give you some.
She may be able to help me.
Yeah,
I think
perfect.
I have
I'll give you a
before.
call.
Because I just, I didn't know as a cultural board if we had any say or any strength there, or I don't know what
No,
you'd say. No,
we
no,
advise council. That's and then we've got a new
okay.
name coming down. So
Oh,
it'll be a
okay,
committee.
that's what I thought, but I just wondered.
Right. So you talk to
Okay.
Virginia after the meeting, and she'll
Mhm.
help you out. Okay.
Fill me in, maybe. Okay.
Is there anything else to bring before the board? We've done all of our stuff that we're supposed to do, Virginia?
Yeah, you have.
And you don't
And
need
actually, timing's not bad.
you don't need a resolution for the cultural financial assistance programming guidelines, do you, from us? That's still,
No.
that's
I
still a
just wanted to
document you're
make
still
sure
working
that-
on.
Yes, I wanted to just make sure the committee was up to speed, and if there was any questions, thoughts, input, that we could get that and make sure that's incorporated. So thank you for, sharing your thoughts, and we'll get that moving forward.
And nobody has anything else they want to bring up? Oh, Brent.
Yeah, I'll add in. I just want to thank the committee, and I actually should say the board, which potentially could be a committee moving forward, that to providing flexibility for people in the public that want to join the committee as well as staff. As Wayne mentioned, there's going to be potentially 3 staff members on this committee moving forward. So it's nice to have a balance of being able to have some meetings at lunchtime and after work to maybe suit everyone, because as Virginia may or may not have stated, there's 5 committees, and I could point to my wall. I got all 5 of them listed there, and she'll have a lot of meetings at 4:30, so she could be working, just perspective, she comes in early, I know, and work till 7:30, so I don't know if we want her working 8 till 7 every night. So I appreciate that aspect.
We keep telling her to take time off, and we even try taking her out for a beer, and she doesn't do that either, Brent. So
Okay.
we know how busy she is.
Okay, thank you.
So we do appreciate it. I think one thing is, because I've been on the Cultural Advisory Board for quite a while, and I was when it first started with Jude Ortaz and Perry Short and stuff like that, this was their hope that the city would grow and take a real active role in culture and development. So this is I see this as a real process. I applaud the city for taking culture on, and our staff at City Hall that's really fighting for it, and also the staff that's been in the past and has made this grow to where we are supporting the cultural and heritage and the arts in our community. So I see this as a real positive move to keep moving forward. And, you know, as our committee, I hope everybody reapplies because it is time to reapply. We have done this for 2 years already. So Virginia will be sending everybody an application form when time comes up to reapply. So hopefully everyone can reapply and we continue on this journey here with culture and arts within the community. Right, Virginia?
Yeah, so I believe my understanding from clerks is that beginning in November is when they'll start the advertising and the application process will be at that time. So yeah, as soon as we get something.
You'll send it out to everyone so they can fill out that little form. Okay. So the date of the next. Go ahead, Virginia. Did you have something else?
Oh no, Noran.
No, it was me.
Oh,
We
Noran?
get Sue this week. This might be just for your own interest. Sue this week has a wonderful little write-up on the first page. The Sue Museum Fall Market fills a gap downtown. And it's talking about everything that's going to be happening on October the 1st and connected with the downtown. And it's just a wonderful little article. It's Sue this week. If you get all the sale papers and everything, it's in there. Not the Sue Star, it's Sue this week. But it's
We'll
right
look
on
for
the
that.
first page here. And I read it, and it's just wonderful what's happening October the 1st, I think, for the whole downtown area and the museum. It sort of fills
Perfect.
that out, and it's wonderful. Yes.
Okay.
So,
Well,
yeah.
thanks, Noran. Okay,
Okay.
so the date of the next meeting will be called to the chair. We need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. I want everybody to jump
I'll
up.
move it. I'll move it.
Thanks, Noran. And
I'll
a
second.
Okay.
thanks, Sean. And we'll just call Heather,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
yes, Noran,
Yes.
and Sean,
Yes.
and Chris, yes. And so we are now adjourned. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Virginia, for all your work and
Yes.
putting us
Yes,
all
yes.
on track here and all this. We know how hard you work as the boss,
Man.
so we agree with them.
Well,
So,
thank you. And yeah, I apologize for the technical difficulties to start this off. I had a few locations and then it was hard because we had some background noise here as well, just because I'm out in the middle of the office. So my apologies.
it all worked.
And I will chat with everybody later. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Okay.
Yes.
Here.